We are coming to you fresh off an actual afternoon win against the Washington Nationals. Yes, the Boston Red Sox decided to show up on a national holiday and handle business like a real baseball team. They dropped 11 runs, racked up 16 hits, got a dominant start from Lucas Giolito, and only needed two relievers to finish the job, even though Garrett Whitlock kept things mildly irritating. We're going to break it all down, the good, the bad, and the still not comforting bullpen. Joining me today is none other than Nick Face. You know him, you love him, and he's been breaking down Boston sports since before Craig Breslow understood what a luxury tax spreadsheet was. Nick, welcome in. Did today's win actually help lower your blood pressure? Or are we still riding the stress train right through this All-Star break?
First of all, I love that introduction. Thank you very much. And I just want to put it on record that I'm actually the Ivy League grad, not Breslow. Just want to make sure that that is crystal clear. Check his diploma, because he came from the Idiotsville USA College, not me. An ongoing joke, just before we jump into it, is I went to, for 2 years, the University of Hartford in Connecticut to start. So the ongoing joke was Nick is a Harvard grad, to get that emphasis on the whole the Hartford versus Harvard thing. So it's an ongoing joke in the family. But no joke today with the Boston Red Sox, I must say. I had to work very hard today at my cafe in Reading, and I had the game on in the background. And I did drop a drink, as a matter of fact, in stunning fashion, because the Red Sox decided to show up to play this morning. I'm stunned, Jim. I'm stunned. What a game today was. I feel good today.
Yeah, and so the Red Sox are 2-0 on the season at starts beginning at 11 a.m. Just putting that out there.
I called them out last night, and I said, if the coffee's not ready to go by 8 a.m., don't even bother coming. And I guess somebody decided to wake up today, gave them that boost that they needed, and boy, oh boy, did they shock us all. That's what I want to see. You know, sometimes when we do these takes, we want to be wrong. We do. We want to be wrong because we want this team to be good. It makes absolutely no difference in the world to me with the product that you got to make sure when we talk about it that we call it out. I feel like if we don't call it out at times, they're not going to get a charge. They're not going to get a burst. They're not going to get that, oh, got to show up and get ready to play. And they absolutely did that today. So I can't even put words in my mouth right now. I really can't, because it was great.
Well, let's start with the obvious. So Trevor Story, he finally was playing like the guy worth his contract. I think he was 4 for 5 today, had a home run, 4 RBIs, 3 runs scored. He looked a little composed, aggressive, and frankly, a threat. I think it's a guy that we've been looking for since he got here in 22. And if this sticks around, it certainly changes the complexion of this lineup. Do you think, Nick, that this is something that's real, or was it just a fireworks display from a bottom feeder pitching staff?
I think this was a fireworks display. I'm not going to get all hot and bothered over today's victory. It's great. Don't get me wrong. I love how Story went 4 for 5 and showed that he's actually a Major League Baseball player. That was great. But to see this tomorrow, the next day, and so on and so forth is what we haven't seen from this team. We'll see the ex-buffoons out there. Oh, the Red Sox are back. Look at this great job today. We don't have anything to worry about. I can't do that. As I've said before, at times when I'm talking about the team, I need sustainability. I need to see over a week. I need to see over a 2-week span, a month span, to really start saying, okay, this is a team I'm going to buy. This is a team I'm going to be buying into to see if they can get better. But what you saw today from Story was his best game of the season. 100%. Put it on record right now. That was awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So we had a 5th inning that the Red Sox scored 7 runs, and it felt like a really great baseball inning. You know, the Sox didn't rely too much on home runs there, but they just kept the pressure on every at bat. Toro, I think, started with a double. You had Mayer reaching base, and it just seemed to snowball from there. The at bats, I mean, they were smart. The base running was smart and aggressive. And, you know, at the end of the day, they buried the Nationals, which is what a team who is trying to compete for a playoff spot should do. My question to you is, was this inning just a flash of what the offense can be, or are we just watching, a meltdown of the Nationals?
I think this is a meltdown of the Nationals. I think it's a team that still isn't anywhere close to being a competitive baseball crew. They're young, but they don't have the gumption that the Red Sox have. And what I mean by that word gumption is they don't have guys that have kind of been there, done that, and are at times proven commodities, like a Trevor Story today. With that contract and everything that was expected for him when he came to town, you expect that game from Trevor Story today. You do. Jaron Duran, same deal. He was a catalyst to start everything off. Did he strike out in a couple things today? Yes, but he did contribute a couple hits. I'll take that. That was great. Roman Anthony today, awesome job. I loved how the ability to hit the ball wasn't all about the home run today. Yes, we had some, but it was a contribution of hitting the ball where they aren't. It was line drive gaps. It was moving the runner along. It was fundamental baseball, Jim. Fundamental baseball.
Yeah, and look what happened. You won the baseball game when you do that.
Holy,
I mean,
I still stunned it was the Red Sox today.
yeah, I mean, it doesn't take a genius to realize that you cannot give other teams more than 27 outs. You just can't do it because it's going to come back to bite you in the rear end. And whether it's the pitching side or the defensive side, you got to be able to pick you got to be able to pick those guys up. And that's one thing that the Red Sox have not been able to do much this year is that when there's an error on the field, the pitcher doesn't pick up that fielder. And when there's a situation where the pitcher might walk somebody or walk the bases loaded or do something that is bad, the team isn't picking up that pitcher. So it was good to see an overall good baseball team. Reminded me of something back in the glory days of 2004, 5, 6, and 7, 8, and so forth. Lucas Giolito. Lucas Giolito was surgical today. 7 2/3 innings, 6 hits, 1 run, 7 strikeouts. I think no walks. He pretty much owned the zone. He kept the hitters off balance, especially Woods and the shortstop. And he looked like a true top of the rotation guy. Funny enough, it came against his old team that drafted him. So not that there's really a revenge thing there, but are we seeing Giolito starting to lock into that number 2 role, or do we need to see more?
I am beginning to have more trust the more Lucas Giolito is finding himself. And I do think when he got hurt and everything, he had to find himself again. He had to understand what that arm can and cannot do. You're seeing a guy that's commanding the zone. You're seeing a guy that's locating his pitches well, and you're seeing length. What I really liked about his outing today was the fact that Cora tested him. Cora gave him past 6 innings. He started the 7th. He couldn't finish it, but I like what Cora did. I liked how he wanted to get more length out of Giolito. There was some Xers out there that said, "Oh, what the heck are you doing? It's 9-1. It's whatever the heck the score was. Why is he still going?" Stop babying these guys. Let them pitch. And that's what I really liked about this. Give that bullpen rest. And that's exactly the start that you wanted today from Giolito, if not more. So as this is continuing, yes, Jim, I am gaining more trust. I still need to see more, of course, against true commodities here in baseball. We're going to start to see that test when we see Tampa coming up and the Cubs and the Dodgers and all that at the end of the month. That's when the real test is going to be for me to see what Giolito is really capable of.
Yeah, no, it makes a good point. You have to kind of, bridge the gap between a suspect team and a prospective team that, can win or go into the postseason. He had that bad outing. He had that one bad outing in April against Toronto in I keep wanting to call it Sky Dome, but it's Rogers Center. And then since then he's looked pretty good. I mean, look, this is a guy that has been around the block a lot. I mean, he's closing in on 200 career starts for his career. He was the ace of the White Sox for a short period of time. He had one of his best seasons in 2019 at his age 24 year, where he was 14-9, a 3.41 ERA. He had 3 complete games, 2 shutouts, and threw almost 180 innings. So this is a guy that has been a lockdown guy that you could theoretically rely on for 170 innings pitched and so forth. So hopefully it is something that we can continue to build upon, because I mean the reality is, if Walker Buehler is going to continue to fizzle out here, someone needs to take the next step. We talked yesterday how Bayo has looked better this season, and the reality is if you could have Crochet, Giolito, and Bayo at the front of that rotation to kind of lock this down, I think you're going to win more games than you lose.
I mean, this is what the team was hoping for when the season began. I mean, on paper, we even had Hulk. Hulk was what, your 2 or 3 guy going into the season? And your question marks are more Giolito, Buehler, what are they going to do? And then throw Cutter Crawford into the fold. Well, we know Cutter Crawford's season's done. Tanner Hulk is a lost cause in my eyes right now. You've had to rely upon your Richard Fitz. You've had to rely upon your Hunter Dobbins. You're getting decent quality outings for the most part from that pair. I mean, your biggest disappointment is Buehler. If Buehler can figure this out, maybe baby steps are made over this weekend. He pitches tomorrow, correct?
Yes, he does.
So maybe he needs somebody who's not that great to kind of get his confidence level going. Because I do feel the biggest thing on Buehler right now is confidence and trust. I personally do not feel Buehler trusts his stuff. And I think he's questioning what the heck he's going to do right now, kind of in a way like Brian Bayo was with that mental focus. I think that's the biggest thing going here, why Walker Buehler is out of tick.
Yeah, and quite frankly, if they can find a way to kind of figure out what is going on with him, I mean,
right here.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's what we call in chiropractic above Atlas. It's all a bit well in your head. But the bottom line here is, if you could right his ship, you could have 4 dependable starters in this rotation, which is not something we've seen since probably 2008. I mean, 2007, 2008 years. So that would be wonderful. I'm still always looking to shop for another starter, but you have to like what Giolito's been doing here.
Totally do.
Talking back again about the offense. So I mean, Trevor Story was the player of the game here. There's no question, offensively anyway. But this definitely was a team effort. I mean, Duran had a couple hits. I think he had 3 RBIs.
Yep.
Marcelo Myers continuing to get on base, which I love.
Yep.
I'm really starting to enjoy watching him play, and not just offensively. He is pretty polished defensively, and he's had to play multiple positions already as a major league, player. And I don't feel Pedroia confident yet, but I feel like he's going to give you a quality defensive play. And then Navarez had a couple of hits, and Rafaela was 1 for 5. So, no easy outs today, but is this the offensive identity we're hoping for moving forward? Or are we going to get a 4-hit night and, 11 runners left on base tomorrow?
That's the going theme. I feel good today, Jim. I feel good. Tomorrow is a whole new day, and they need to do the same approach. These things have not been repeatable whatsoever. So for me to say, oh boy, here it comes, it's going to be an offensive fireworks explosion this weekend in Washington, I'm not going to sit here and do that. I can't, especially Buehler's going tomorrow. This could be the pack it in game, like Cora always loves for every series. Pack it on in, guys. Don't you worry.
Yeah, exactly. So Giolito over 7 innings pitched. It allowed the bullpen to get a nice break here, but Garrett Whitlock did come in for the final inning and a third. He gave up 2 runs and 2 hits and a run. Not a disaster when you have 11 run lead or 9-0 at that time, but he definitely wasn't crisp. I haven't been a very good Whitlock supporter this season. He hasn't had the dominance he had in 21. I know this wasn't a high leverage situation, but it didn't give me a lot of confidence for him, in this game or moving forward. what do we do here? Is Whitlock someone we could still trust, or is he really kind of losing it in the spotlight? Not that, the Nationals are a big threat, but I'm a little concerned, Nick.
I think the most important thing here for fans to remember is 2021 Garrett Whitlock is not walking through the door. What you saw there, not going to be repeatable. Not going to happen. He's been injured too much. He's been up and down. He's like a roller coaster. You just don't know what to get. I do want to say, though, I like him where he is. I'm so glad that they gave up in this whole starter approach with Whitlock, because he probably would be hurt right now if that was the case. It's the matter of figuring out what is his role. I do not think that they understand yet what his role is. They like him ideally as a 7-8 or 6-7 guy. I just think that maybe one inning and then a couple days off is what you have to do for him for sustainability. And I think outside of today, when was the last time Whitlock threw? So this could have been a rusty outing.
Yeah, I think his last recent game was Sunday in that Toronto game when the Red Sox lost 5-3. He did pitch one inning and had a strikeout in that game. The day, the outing before that, Nick, was in Anaheim on the 23rd. That was a 9-5 loss. He was an inning and 2/3 that game. That was the one you're referencing. 4 earned runs, 3 walks, and 1 strikeout. Total disaster in that outing. And the three outings before that: 1 inning, 1 hit, 2 strikeouts, 2 walks, 1 inning, 1 strikeout, and then 1 2/3 and 2 strikeouts against the Yankees. So you're exactly right. It's been a roller coaster with Whitlock. And I don't know what it is, if it is the fact that he goes more than the 1 inning, and it's not, to your point, the 2021 Whitlock, where we're going to be getting 2 or 3 innings from him of dominant shutout relief appearances. I think he would be better suited into a traditional 1 inning relief style appearance, and maybe kind of go back to what we used to see years ago with even like the Nasty Boys and the Reds, where you would have an 7th inning guy, an 8th inning guy, and a 9th inning guy. When they had Norm Charlton, Rob Dibble, and Randy Myers, you had 6 innings to beat that team. And if you didn't, it was over. Same thing with the Yankees when they used to have John Wetland and they had Mariano Rivera. You had 7 innings to score, and it was over. And I think that's what the Red Sox should do here. They should recap what has been a really good way to win a ball game with your bullpen, and that has always been shorten the game. Shorten the game. If you do that and you have a lights out guy in your 7th, 8th, and 9th, you make it very difficult for an opposing team to win and beat you, because they know themselves, as soon as you have a lead and the 7 comes up on that inning scoreboard, the game is over. And if the Red Sox can figure out to get those 3 guys, we've got Chapman. We still really don't have what I would consider an 8th inning guy, and we certainly don't have a 7th inning guy. We have a rotation of guys like Weissert and so forth. Does the Slayton injury kind of impact that? Yes, probably. He probably would have been suited as more of an 8th inning guy. But, they're going to be back soon. Maybe that's what Cora needs to do, is have Whitlock 7, Slayton 8, and Chapman 9 when they have the lead. And when they don't have the lead, that's when you pepper in guys like Weissert and Justin Wilson and so forth. Your thought?
Yeah, I think I completely agree with it. I would love to see more roles defined with this crew. And again, this goes back to the Achilles heel and the flaw of the Red Sox. Everybody has to be a flex role. Everybody, whether it's position players, pitchers, there's no set alignment on what's happening with this team. I think one of the best things that this team can do overall to improve their season is to say, you know what's going to happen? Whitlock, you're the 7 guy. Hicks, you're the 8th guy. Chapman, you're the 9th guy. And I'm just spewing this out. It doesn't have to be set in stone. We know Chapman is where he is, but they even mix and match with Chapman at times. Sometimes Chapman gets the 8th inning if it's the heart of the lineup or something. I get it, but then you have to go to your Weiserts and then your other, unproven guys, and that scares me. I think if they had defined roles, this team could actually go on a roll. Instead, we have it's going to be this guy this day and this one here, and this one has to have the day off because he threw 10 pitches. It infuriates me with this stuff because, I grew up watching the 90s, the 2000s, the 2010s. You've seen guys go multiple days back to back. It's not going to kill a reliever like a Chapman, okay, to go 2 days in a row. It's just not. You just got to make it happen.
I think one of the reasons why you're seeing guys like Chapman come in the 8th inning is because, we've seen him a lot in the 8th and, on the road for sure. But the reality, I think, is that Cora just doesn't trust, and I don't either, but he doesn't trust anybody else in that particular role. And, you don't want to have Chapman in your bullpen and have another guy lose the game for you. In other words, you want to go, if you're going to lose, you want your best guy out there. And that's just an old-fashioned rule in baseball. Mm-hmm. But the reality is we just don't have that other guy in this bullpen that you can rely on each and every night like him. We had Chris Martin in the past. You had a guy that was an 8th inning guy that you could trust day in and day out. And they just don't have that.
This team severely misses, believe it or not, your Hideki Okajima types, your Junichi Tozawa types, your Mike Timlins. I loved Mike Timlin. I loved him. I thought he was one of the best go-to guys that I always felt that I could trust. Yep. And I really feel Mike Timlin and the likes of Alan Embrees and your Hideki Okajimas and heck, even Curtis Laskanics of the world. That's one of the reasons your 04 and 07 teams went so far, because their bullpens were gigantic. Keith Folk, to name another one. Of course, Papelbon. Yep. You were dominant because you had the bodies and you had the ability to go. If a pitcher only went 5 innings, you had trust from 6 through 9 to get the job done, no matter what the cause was. So those types are really missed right now.
There's a lot of people out there that think, saves are a garbage stat. I love closers. I've always loved closers. And it's not just about getting 3 outs in the 9th inning. I like a guy that's going to come out there where I can say to myself, the game is over. And again, that's why I reference those 1990 Reds so often and things like that, because they were absolutely a wagon. Moving on a little bit, as far as the Nationals are concerned, they didn't make any errors in this game, but they just got beat. How should the fans react to this win in terms of, is this a launching pad for the future down the road, down towards this trade deadline and the rest of the season? They have the capability to score big innings, big games, and when they do score over 10 runs, I think this is the 13th game all season that they've scored over 10 runs. They win every single one of them. Mm-hmm. Can we get some consistency here, Nick? And what do you think is going to happen when guys like Bregman come back and Yoshida come back? Because let's face it, guys like Toro have been pretty good, better than I thought they would be. Nick Sogard has kicked in. You've got these young guys in Meyer and Anthony now. What do you see is going to happen here? And is their returns almost going to feel like they're undoing what we currently have?
Well, the biggest thing for the Bregman return is obviously when he comes back, it's going to be third base. He might DH a couple times just to make sure nothing gets re-injured or whatnot. So you're going to be moving Marcelo Meyer from third base over to second. So that's going to mean David Hamilton is finally dead. Is that correct?
I mean, I've had enough of him.
It's insane. So that's going to be one thing. The biggest question here is going to be figuring out what you do with Toro. That's going to be the real question because Toro's been very productive. Because you just not going to, there's not going to be that much. I mean, you can still play him at first base on occasion and platoon him with Romy and stuff like that. But then you're going to have Yoshida around and figuring out, okay, what happens with Roman Anthony because he's clicking right now. So they're going to have one or two players that are currently playing right now will probably not be here in a couple weeks.
Yeah, I know. And, I wonder if Toro has solidified himself as a long-term piece here, at least for this season. He's probably got options. So he's the one guy that they can bring down. You look at guys like Romy Gonzalez. I think you would probably see him as your backup first baseman, in the future, depending on what they're doing. I just can't see them platooning, obviously, Romy and Toro, even though Toro can, play third as well. It's a little bit of a question mark. There's just too many guys and not enough spots.
I just can't figure out with Yoshida rehabbing right now. They say there's a need. I don't see a need. I just don't. I don't want him.
If you are going to move forward with a DH spot in your lineup, that's going to be a rotational position to give your players a rest, and you're not going to go out and get Devers again, David Ortiz, JD Martinez, you're not going to get a hitter-only player, then I think what you need to do is you need to rotate these guys. But the fact of the matter is they're getting enough offense without Yoshida. So to your point, I'm not quite sure how he is in need on this team.
I don't know where he fits in.
Yeah, my concern is, they'll score 11 runs today and then probably lose 1-0 tomorrow. And that's what drives me nuts. And I don't see Masataka Yoshida fixing that. Because if he could, he would have been here already.
Yeah, Yoshida just gives this roster a roster jam again. There's just, you got too many guys that just are just blah, blah. I could see if this was like, Alex Bregman or whatnot rehabbing with Worcester and we have to find a spot for him. But it's Yoshida. It's like, ew. Like, we don't need this.
No, I don't think so. And, this is why I find it very, funny how he's playing the outfield. He's taking grounders at first base. I think the Red Sox are telling you that they don't know what they want to do with him because at this
point,
they
could also be trying to up his trade value by saying to other teams, well, he could play first and he could play this other too. That's ideally what I think they're trying to prove here.
I mean, look, I rule out nothing, but the fact is he hasn't had a game at first base yet. So we don't know what he really looks like there. All they're doing is showcasing some, obviously just, whatever they're doing right now, whether it's they want to get him into games at first base or it's just practice. I don't know. I don't know if it's going to matriculate to an actual, real game or this is just what they did with Christian Campbell. So if they're showcasing Yoshida, then they should have him on the major league roster, not a minor league roster, first of all. And the other part of it is, I don't know why I want to make room for him because if he falls on his face, he's less likely a trade candidate. But again, are you going to find a team that's going to take on that contract? They didn't want to pay anything for Rafael Devers when they could have traded potentially him to the Braves and gotten Ozuna and whatever else was involved in that trade.
I think it was the catcher. That was Sean Murphy. Sean Murphy.
Yep. Yeah. That would have been a great trade. However, they didn't want to take on any money. And when Henry was pressed, he said, go with the Giants deal because they were willing to take it all on. Devers at least was an offensive threat. Yoshida is not. We all know he's overpaid. The Red Sox are telling you they don't want him on the roster because if they did, they would have found room for him because they're paying him $90 million. So I just don't know what kind of return you can get. and I don't know how much of that money you've got to eat. So I'm really concerned that if they try to find a move that involves him, some team is going to say, we'll take him, but you've got to eat the majority of the contract. And then it turns around to say they've got to eat 90% of it. Are they better off just leaving him on the Red Sox roster and seeing what he can do for us down the stretch? It's a tough situation without an answer.
It's too bad we can't say, hey, Chaim Bloom, this was your biggest problem. You deal with it. No, can't do that anymore.
No, and it looks like they're trying to unheim Bloom this entire team. I mean, when
Yes,
you really,
they are.
you know, when you look at it, they've gotten rid of anything that Chaim Bloom has put his hands on, except for Trevor Story and Yoshida and Connor Wong. I mean, I don't know what much more that's there. So
you really can't put much stock in the Marcelo Meyer drafting. You really can't.
No,
Anybody in their own mother would have drafted Marcelo Meyer as number 4. I mean, that you can't. So that's really not a Bloom move.
No, a toddler could have done that. So I don't give him any credit for that at all.
One of Breslow's robots did it.
Yeah, exactly. Last question for you. How do you feel for the rest of this weekend? We got, obviously we talked about the fact that Bueller is tomorrow, and then Sunday, I believe is that the Crochet game? And we don't know maybe who he's facing yet.
You think Crochet will be the Sunday game? I still feel it's 2 out of 3. We talked about this last night. I think tomorrow is the biggest question mark of the series. If we have any faith that Walker Bueller is going to turn a corner and be fixed and get back on track, it's tomorrow. If he gets shelled and he gets annihilated by the Nationals, I vote for keeping him in D.C. and letting him stay there and not boarding the plane to come back to Fenway here in Boston. That is where my vote lands.
Get him a one-way ticket to San Francisco.
Absolutely. Give it to Devers.
He can take him. He can use Devers' ticket over again. Listen, I agree with you. I think that I said this last night. I said the Red Sox will win 2 out of 3. I just don't know which 2 out of 3. And I said that the Crochet game was probably as much of a lock as anything. They won today. You know, hindsight, I felt kind of good going into this game just because the way Giolito's been pitching. So tomorrow is the big nutcracker. I mean, if they win all 3, I'm going to feel a lot better about this team. Then they come home and face Colorado, and they've got to sweep them. No ands, ifs, or buts. They've got to sweep them at home. So Bueller's got a lot on his plate tomorrow. Not only he got to figure it out, but he's also got to look at himself and say, I can't be responsible for giving this team a nosedive, you know, a day before the Crochet game and in a series that we should sweep, not just win 2 out of 3. And on the third part, keep my job as a rotational piece, let alone be DFA'd or, you know, put on the IL again. But I think this is his last shot. If he comes out and has another stinker, I don't understand or know how you could put him out there for another start. It just doesn't make any sense. Nick, any last minute or last?
The biggest thing I kept thinking about is with your bottom of the barrel teams, your Nationals, your Colorado Rockies. Let's say hypothetically, they win all the games. That would be 6 of 6 against your Nationals and your Rockies. Are you feeling extra good about the direction the team is heading? Or are you still questioning what this team is going to do post All-Star break?
I'm still questioning what they're going to do post All-Star break.
Yeah.
And part of that is because if you are a team that is having postseason aspirations, you should be winning 7 of 9, 8 of 9 anyway. It doesn't matter what your roster construction is in terms of in and out with a couple guys, because at this point now, you haven't had Yoshida all year. As I said before, he doesn't move the needle at all. Bregman will. I'd rather have the solidified offense and defense at third, which puts Meyer at second, I believe, and makes that position stronger. And then if we do have in some way a continued platoon of either Toro, Romy Gonzalez, or whatever at first base, at least those guys are not going to be overused by one day they're at first, one day they're at third, and so forth. So I think you could get more out of them. So Bregman is the bigger piece here because it will stabilize the rest of the infield, in my opinion. I think the Red Sox would be very smart to find a way to add a backup catcher who can hit and he could field better than Connor Wong and move him, DFA him. I don't care what it is. I think they would be very beneficial to find a way to get another starting pitcher, even if it sacrifices guys like Duran and a minor leaguer. And I think if they could find an everyday first baseman that is someone that's dependable, and I'm not saying Pete Alonso because the Mets are in the playoff run, but if you could get someone that maybe has an expiring contract or has a big contract, but it makes a lot of sense and he's a right-handed hitter, then I would look into doing something like that to upgrade that middle of the lineup. And then you keep guys like Toro or Romy on the roster and maybe on the bench so that you can mix and match those guys in certain instances.
I don't think that Braves deal with Devers between the Alcuna and Sean Murphy thing is dead. The more I think about it.
Well, look, I mean, the Braves are really struggling. You know, now
Yes,
they've lost Schwellenbach, right? So their rotation is taking a hit.
Chris Sale's got the rib issue.
Chris Sale has the rib issue because he went and dove, for that ball.
Missed the toothpick.
So, they are hurting. They have a lot of talent. And I posted a tweet today. I said, there is a lot of, bickering going on with Ronald Acuna Jr. And I don't know. Could you go out and just say to the Braves, what would it take? I'd ask.
I mean, they were ready. They were ready to package Alcuna and Sean Murphy to Boston for Devers. What are you going to need if you're the Red Sox to put a package together that brings both of them here? I'm assuming you got to part with Duran, some sort of a prospect.
That was Ozuna, not Ronald Acuna. That was Ozuna.
I meant Ozuna. I'm sorry. Yeah. That's what I meant. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what it would take, but I think the Braves are open for business, and I think the Red Sox should listen.
I think they're one of the few teams that you can look at in baseball right now and say to yourself, this is a team that has players that you would want, players that you would trade for, players that have term and can actually upgrade your lineup. There are very few teams, and frankly, with the fact that we have that extra wild card spot, over the last few years, less and less teams are motivated to wave the white flag. But this is a great opportunity because you're not going to get something from the Giants. You're not going to get something from, I don't know, Kansas City maybe. But, then just because a team is out of it doesn't mean they've got players you want. So, yeah, I would definitely be on the phone with Atlanta and say, what is it going to take to pry, to your point, Sean Murphy, maybe Marcell Ozuna, Ronald Acuna Jr., any of these guys that might be available.
Help your team.
And I'm telling you, if they got one or two of those guys, you got to be feeling pretty good if you're a Red Sox fan.
I would be feeling much better about that, definitely.
Well, that's going to wrap it up for today on this Independence Day edition of Red Sox Digest Live. If you've enjoyed today's beatdown or just the therapy session, hit the subscribe. Follow us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple with our podcast. Go to RedSoxDigest.com. Sign up for a free subscription. Donate too if you'd like. We'll be happy to take your money. Big thanks to Nick Face for joining me today. And props to the Red Sox for not ruining the 4th of July. We'll be back again on Sunday. And if we'll see how it goes there. Hopefully we'll see a sweep. Have a good night, everybody. and happy 4th of
See you
July.
soon.